So it seems we have news that the new banners are out. Kujo Sara. Bennett, huh? Interesting. And we've got Bennett, Chevreuse, and Kujo Sara as the 4 stars with Raiden Yoimiya. Okay, let's take a look at the weapon banner real quick. Huh, okay. Well, let's start with these. So we got Raiden and Yoimiya. With Bennett, thankfully it's not someone like Shinyan, so Bennett is obviously incredibly good, one of the best characters in the game and a universal support. Then we've got Kujo Sara, who is really not that useful. She is an attack buffer, but she's kind of awkward to use. And really, if you want to use her at, like, all, it feels kind of bad unless she's at least C2, but ideally you want her C6. Chevreuse is also kind of an interesting character because she shreds pyro and electro resistance, but you could just use an animo character and have an easier time with it. I mean, she does do well in an overload team, but she's kind of designed to be another 4-star that you really kind of want at C6. She provides something that's kind of nice. It's like, oh, you get double resistance shred, but you can do that with an animo character most of the time too, so you don't necessarily need her. She's kind of a weird, like in a weird spot. She provides something that's good, but not really that needed or not really that different. So we got to play Chevreuse in the event. Basically, after she charges the overload ball from her skill, nearby pyro and electro characters gain 1% attack increase for every 1000 max HP Chevreuse has for 30 seconds. It can be increased up to 40% this way. So if you have a 40k HP Chevreuse, you can get a 40% attack buff. That's pretty solid, I guess. Her AoE, like burst, it blows up, deals a bit of damage, that's kind of it. Secondary shells will short interval, dealing pyro damage to nearby opponents. It looks like, with the way this burst works, if each of the grenades is counted independently as its own hit, it should be able to cause several different reactions, because there's several grenades that drop afterwards and they explode pretty quickly. For short duration, after it fires a shot, she will continuously restore HP to the active character on the field. The amount of healing is based on her max HP. But it looks like the scaling of all of her abilities looks like they're based on attack. So you want to build her with like attack and a lot of HP if you're going to build her. Her kit sounds like it could be pretty good, but at the same time it's like, it's pretty niche. And then they also revealed her constellation, so let's take a look at those. Alright, so her C1. When an active character with the coordinated tactic status, not including Chevreuse herself, triggers an overload reaction, they will recover 6 energy. This can be triggered once every 10 seconds. You must first unlock Vanguard's coordinated tactics, which I believe is her, yeah, that's her A4, the one that gives you attack percent as well. So her C1 gives your character energy back. There's not too many on-field damage dealers that really want a lot of energy that also want to run overload. Like, Yomiya doesn't really care about energy. Something like this could be nice for Sino, but he doesn't really run overload, and I don't think you'd want to run an overload Sino team that much. You'd just much rather do aggravate. So, neat, but I don't really see where it's going to be used that often. Kaching doesn't need energy if you're running an overload Kaching, which is also annoying because Kaching's normal attacks knock enemies back anyways. So if you knock them back with overload, they get knocked back like twice as far. Alright, let's look at C2. After you do the hold for her skill on her C2, after hitting a target, 2 chain explosions will be triggered near location. Each explosion deals pyro damage equal to 120% of Chevreuse's attack. Can be triggered once every 10 seconds. Damage dealt this way is considered elemental skill damage. C3 increases level of her skill. C4, after using her burst, the hold mode of her skill will not go on cooldown. When she uses it, this effect is removed after it has been fired twice using the hold, or 6 seconds. It seems like Chevreuse is going to end up taking a lot more field time. I think she's going to put some teams in like weird rotations if you use her. C5 increases her burst level. C6. 12 seconds after healing from her skill, all nearby party members recover HP equivalent to 10% of Chevreuse's max HP once. After a party member is healed by short range rapid by her skill, they gain a 20% pyro damage bonus and electro damage bonus for 8 seconds, max 3 stacks. Each stack's duration is counted independently. Okay, that sounds like it could be a lot. I think Chevreuse C6 will end up being very good with characters potentially in the future. They have released characters before that are designed to be supports for characters that have not come out yet. So there is a chance that Chevreuse could be a very good support for someone like Arlecchino, who we know is a pyro character. But I would not wish on this banner for Chevreuse specifically if you also want Arlecchino. That seems like it'd be a giant risk. She could work a bit with Yoimiya, she could work a bit with Raiden Overload, but right now there's not a lot of characters that want everything she's providing. So I think she's going to be better in the future when more characters come out with a kit that she specifically will be very good with. But right now, like, you kind of have to try to make her work rather than just have her fall in perfectly like a puzzle piece. I'm glad that we got to see her finalized kit in the event, so we can actually look at this and say, oh, okay, I guess the wiki stuff is reliable. So overall, the 4 stars on this banner, not really too good. Basically, Chevreuse and Kujo Sara are pretty niche. They're good at what they do with high constellations, but what they do is also just pretty niche in general, so you're not going to use them everywhere. But Bennett, extremely good. His C1 is really, really good too, so if you already have a copy of Bennett and you get his C1, it's his best constellation right outside of like his C5. 4 stars on here, not great. 1 really good, 2 that are meh, and that a lot of people probably just wouldn't use very often unless they just like the way the characters looked. Raiden is obviously someone that a lot of people have been waiting for. She's really good on field. She also works off field in a Hyper Bloom team, or could work in an Overload team or an Electrocharge team if you wanted to build her with high EM, or just keep her high EM build for those teams as well. Outside of Raiden Hyper Carry, these 4 stars do well with her, and with Yoimiya, you don't really need Kujo Sara for any sort of Yoimiya hyper carry. Chevreuse could potentially work with some sort of Overload Yoimiya team, which would be kind of interesting. But making the enemies explode away from you with Yoimiya is bad because you don't really want to move, and if they just explode outside of her range, then she has to chase them down, and if she can't do her 5th hit of her normal attack combo, she loses out on a ton of damage. But Bennett is, like for most characters, extremely good with her. So these are kind of interesting banners. If you are not 100% going for one of these 2 characters, wait for the 4.4 live stream patch, which will happen 10 days into when these banners appear. So in a little less than a week, these banners are going to be up. Wait about another 10 days, so about 2 weeks, we'll have the 4.4 live stream. And then we'll see who's coming in patch 4.4. It'll be during Lantern Rite, so I'm expecting characters like Zhao to rerun. But also, we have not had Nahita's rerun yet, and she should be out. Nahita is one of the best characters in the game, and hopefully her banner will have 4 stars that are more universal than this. And they did announce the 4 stars during the Lantern Rite before. I think that's because a lot of the developers and people in China had time off work during Lantern Rite and Lunar New Year, and so they just announced the 4-star banners, like the 4-star characters on the banners ahead of time. So maybe we'll get lucky and get to see who's coming there as well, and then you can make your decision on whether you want to go for Nahita or any of the other rerun characters, or go for Raiden or Yoimiya. That's the smart move. Even if you're really, really excited for these banners, you may just want to wait to see who's coming and see if you want them more. Instead of going super hard immediately, just take some time and figure out if you like these characters more or the characters in the upcoming version a bit more. Now let's look at the weapon banner. We've got the Thundering Pulse and Engulfing Lightning, both pretty solid. Let's look at the 4 stars though. Rust, Fav, Eye of Perception, Wavebreaker's Fin, Rain Slasher. These are not good. The 4 stars on here are actually quite bad. Fav Sword, really good. Wavebreaker's Fin is okay. It's basically the catch with attack instead of energy recharge. However, you get the catch for free. The catch, you can R5 for free. So it's generally just going to be better than the Wavebreaker's Fin unless you somehow get a bunch of Wavebreaker's Fin and you can R5 it. It has a higher base attack. It has like a lower attack percent as a subset. But it's essentially the same thing as the catch. So unless you get like an R5 of this and get a second catch, it's really not going to be as good as a free-to-play weapon you can get. The Fab Sword is really, really good and incredibly useful on so many different characters, whether it's someone like Xingqiu or just pretty much any support character could use a Fab and appreciate it, and so would the rest of your team. Rust is very good for Yoimiya, not too many other characters. Eye of Perception is like, it's like a 4-star catalyst that feels bad to get. Rain Slasher, not very good outside of like an EM Aggravate Beto build or like an EM Diluc Vaporize build. Outside of that, it's nicknamed Pain Slasher for a reason. Not very good weapons here. The 5 stars are both pretty solid. The Thundering Pulse and Engulfing Lightning are really nice. One thing that I would like to just mention for most people who've been waiting for Raiden for a really long time, you do not need her C2, and you do not need her signature weapon at all. In terms of like signature weapons for characters, Engulfing Lightning is pretty good, but it's not like super ultra mega top tier in terms of like weapons, like signature weapons for a character. It doesn't increase her damage by like an astronomical amounts like some other characters like Nuvalette with his signature weapon, for example, but it is pretty good, and it gives you a more unique problem when you have it, because it gives you a lot of energy recharge and takes your energy recharge and turns it into attack percent. That allows you to run Raiden with an attack Sands and an Electro Goblets. This is a very weird situation because you're now taking a character where you would normally run, if you had her C0 and you needed the extra energy recharge, you'd usually run like an ER weapon like the Catch, and then run an energy recharge Sands with an attack Goblet, because you get a lot of electro damage bonus from the amount of energy recharge she has. Well, when you're using the Engulfing Lightning, you get so much energy recharge that does not become a problem, and you're getting a bunch of attack in addition to electro damage bonus, so you end up building a little too much attack with her if you go Engulfing Lightning with attack Goblet. And so at that point, if you're running her and Bennett, you're like, okay, I have a little too much attack, where else can I focus putting on stats to do more damage? So you end up running something like an attack Sands with an Electro Goblet, or even an energy recharge Sands with an Electro damage Goblet, and she ends up getting something like 100% electro damage bonus. However, Electro Goblets are very hard to get, especially if with the level of stats that Raiden wants, which is basically every offensive stat in the game. She wants crit rate, crit damage for sure, and then she also wants attack and energy recharge as well, and those are both very important stats for her. EM is like okay, it's not terrible, but it's not really what she wants. So she basically wants everything but like HP and defense. And she wants every artifact to be like a 4-line of something that she wants, so it can be very, very difficult to build her well. And so the Engulfing Lightning actually makes unique problems for Raiden just in gearing, because it becomes a lot harder. If you were going for Yoimiya and got the Thundering Pulse, obviously very good for her, but let's say you fell short and you just ended up getting several copies of Rust. Yoimiya is one of the few characters that can actually use the Rust well. There's not a lot of bow characters that do normal attacks. Even someone like Child does not really like the Rust because of the reduced damage you do from charge attacks that actually hurts him a bit. Overall, this weapon banner, very the 5 stars are pretty solid, the 4 stars are really not, which is unfortunate. So if you were going for these characters, my recommendation is just go for them, don't go for their weapons. Unless you're just willing to go for, just put a couple wishes in and see what you get. Maybe you're lucky, maybe you're close to like Weapon Banner Pity. But honestly, big trap. Weapon Banner is always a trap, and this is especially so. So I would not recommend going for this, especially if you're going for Raiden, because she has free-to-play options, and like burning all your Primo Gems on this Weapon Banner, especially if there's other characters like Nahida and coming in Lantern Rite that a lot of people probably want as well. And yeah, those are just kind of my thoughts on the weapon and character banner. I would hold off and see who's coming in 4.4 before committing a bunch of wishes, unless you're just already down for everything. And then this weapon banner's yikes.